Well, next we have a fellow who, well, let me start like this. About a half a year ago, the St. Petersburg Times in Florida started publishing an amazing series of pieces about the really horrendous physical and mental abuse going on in the Sea Org at the hands of Scientology's current leader, David Miscavige. Our next speaker, Jeff Hawkins, worked for 35 years at the upper levels of Scientology and worked right there close to David Miscavige, so close that Miscavige actually beat our next guest. And I'd like to bring up Jeff Hawkins now.
Thank you very much. I'm not actually supposed to be here today, according to the church. Just after I committed to this event, a fellow showed up at my door up in Portland and handed me a subpoena to appear at a deposition, and this was at the request of the church lawyers. And I looked at the deposition, and it said February 12th at 10 a.m. And I thought, oh, that's a coincidence. Not. But there's other reasons that I'm not supposed to be here. Before I left Scientology's international base, I spent 3 months getting what they call security checks, which is where they put you on the e-meter with the cans and they ask you, what are your crimes? What have you done? What crimes do you have against David Miscavige? On and on and on and on. And they just have you confess to anything and everything. This literally went on for 3 months until they felt that they had enough dirt on me so that they could shut me up if I decided to speak out. And they've tried that. When I gave an interview to a reporter up in Portland, they contacted the reporter and said, oh, this fellow has horrible crimes. He has horrible crimes. And I said, good. Then expose what those are, because they're going to come right out of my confessional folders, and that's what they do to people. They take their private confessional folders, and they'll take anything they've confessed to, and they'll use it to try to shut them up. The other reason that I'm theoretically not supposed to be here today is that before they would allow me to leave the church, I had to sit in the room with a bunch of lawyers and sign forms and sign a lot of legal documents saying that I would never reveal what went on at Scientology's international base. This was videotaped and so forth, very official. And what they don't tell you is that there was a burly security guard standing just out of camera range, ready to take me back to the international base and lock me up again if I didn't cooperate. So I cooperated and I signed everything that they asked me to sign, and then I left. But that's another reason I'm not supposed to be there. But the biggest reason that I'm not supposed to be here today is that I was never supposed to leave the international base. And they take great pains to make sure people don't leave. I worked for the Church of Scientology for 35 years, some of that in Europe, some of that in the United States. The last 15 years I was at the international base in Hemet, California. I was a marketing executive. A lot of you might remember the Dianetics campaign from the 1980s with the exploding volcano. I did those ads, very successful campaign. And since leaving Scientology, I've spoken out extensively about the human rights violations at that base, the physical abuse, the mental and emotional abuse. And the most common question that I get, which Mark talked a bit about, is, why didn't you leave? Why didn't you just get up and leave? And the church will tell you, oh, they could have left at any time. They were free to leave, and so forth. And I want to give you a little bit of background about that question, because it's a subject with some depth, and it goes right to the core of Scientology's philosophy. Now, the church tries to characterize me as a hate monger, and they try to say that they love the phrase anti-religious bigot, and they like to say that me and these other people are bigots and are haters and hate Scientology and so forth. Well, I don't hate Scientology, And in fact, I have many friends who have left the church and have continued to practice Scientology, and I say, well, more power to you. A person's religious beliefs are their religious beliefs, and I don't interfere with that. But my friends are not abusing anyone, they're not defrauding anyone, they are not doing anything illegal, and their beliefs and their practices are their own. And I'm also in touch with many people still currently in the church, and I can hear the church's ears pricking up on that one. And they are very nice people, and most of them very conscientious, very wonderful people. They have been indoctrinated into the Scientology thought system. Now, when I first got into Scientology, and I've told people this, if there hadn't been anything good in Scientology, if there hadn't been anything workable, I wouldn't have spent 5 minutes with it. And I spent 35 years with it, so obviously there were some things I found good about it to stay that long. And I was very enthusiastic about it in the beginning, this idea of communicating to others and helping others and helping the planet and so forth. That all appealed to me, being an idealistic young man. But above all of that is really this idea of immortality. In the view of Scientology, this is a prison planet and everybody is trapped on this planet and so forth. And one is condemned to live life after life after life, not knowing anything, in complete darkness and ignorance, and this is supposedly the trap that we're in. And by moving up the bridge to operating Thetan, or OT, which is supposed to be a state of high spiritual awareness and power, one's supposed to be fully conscious and aware, and one is supposed to be able to then live life after life, remembering everything that went on in your previous lives. And this is what they mean when they talk about total freedom or your eternity and so forth and so on. And I heard a funny story yesterday. Somebody was telling me the Scientologist is talking about his successes in Scientology, and he says, I know I have secured my eternity and the eternity after that. And the eternity, I don't know what that meant. Okay, but for a Scientologist, this isn't just some Sunday prayer meeting thing where they show up once a week and so forth. This is like very, very serious activity, and this is what Hubbard said about it. He said, we are not playing some minor game in Scientology. It isn't cute or something to do for lack of something better. The whole agonized future of this planet, every man, woman, and child on it, and your own destiny for the next endless trillions of years depend on what you do here and now with and in Scientology. This is a deadly serious activity. So this is the kind of tone of the people Scientology activity. When I was a Scientologist, I believed that. I believed this was serious and that the fate of the planet was at stake and so forth. So the greatest fear of any Scientologists, whether they're Sea Org or public or anything like that, is that not that they'll lose their friends or their family or anything like this, but the topmost fear is that they're going to lose what they call their eternity. And I just want to read from a suppressive person order that was issued by the church some years ago. And it says, he will never, never, ever again, which I promise you, in any life, ever again receive any auditing, which is the counseling, or ever have a chance to get out of his trap. And those who are on OT3, OT level, operating Thetan level 3, know what that means. It means to die and die and die and die again. Okay, so it's not just a death threat. It's a death threat that they're holding over their heads. And this is serious. If you believe in Scientology's belief system, this is a serious threat. They've done the Mafia one better. It's not just, a death threat. It's like dying over and over and over again.